Welcome to another episode of Lost in the 80s. I'm Bretman.
And I'm Johnny B. And so we are going down that memory lane of the 1980s, and we're trying to shock and just give each other impressions of the 80s, showing different videos, different music, and seeing what our thoughts and opinions on those are.
You're darn right. Absolutely.
Right.
All right. So I know this one's not going to be a surprise.
Okay.
But this is a trailer for a movie that was very controversial at the time because they had to remove just a couple seconds of violence from this movie. Otherwise, it would have been rated X.
Okay, but that was a lot of movies in that time.
There was no NC-17 back then.
Yeah,
so that one degree above rated R.
Exactly.
So they cut some just a little violence from it, but that's okay. But I love this movie. Like I said, I know it's not going to be a shocker for you, but I know it's going to make you go, oh yeah.
Okay.
I remember. Here we go.
Ready?
We have one of the most famous 80s movie companies.
Okay, it's from Orion.
That's right.
We get the best of both worlds.
It wasn't Orion Disney.
No.
MGM. Computer-assisted memory and a lifetime
Computer
of
banks here.
law enforcement programming. It is my great pleasure.
Law
to present
Okay.
to you
I think I know what it is. Obviously.
Robocop.
Robocop. That's right.
Robocop.
I'm sorry. This was a badass movie, man. I love this movie.
Not a
It
guy
was.
machine.
Love that 80s dystopian future,
Right.
you know.
Cancer is crime.
Let the woman go.
This is one of my
You are
favorite
under
parts right here.
arrest.
They may show it for me.
You better back up, pal!
Your move, creep.
Good move, creep.
Oh yeah, that's the scene we're going to show
directives.
because I love that part.
You have
Oh,
the
yeah.
right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney.
He's beating up Red Foreman.
Yeah.
He's putting his foot up
Anything
Red
you
Foreman's
say
ass.
may be used against you.
He's a cyborg, you idiot!
So many 80s guys in this movie,
The
though.
word you said.
It's classic, like very classic 80s.
His memories
Synthesized music.
Yeah. Very reminiscent of Running Man, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, this was directed by Paul
Verhoeven.
Yeah, Paul Verhoeven.
1987, yeah.
I love those
That
Ford.
Terminator-ish.
The future of law enforcement.
So, one comment I want to make, the one thing that always bothered me about Robocop was all the Ford Tauruses.
I know, those were the cop cars.
Yes.
Look, I know it's Detroit, and, Ford's in Detroit.
Yeah, but it was that was the problem I always had.
Those are not
it.
turbocharged pursuit
Even
cars.
as a kid, as a kid, I knew that a Ford Taurus wasn't the car of the future.
Well, dude, remember when we lived by each other? My wife and I had the Ford Taurus. They're not that good at cars.
No.
Biggest lemon I ever had.
And they're kind of ugly.
Oh, they're incredibly ugly.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I love this movie. This movie is so freaking cool.
Now, I do admit, I've seen the unedited, the original version
too.
of Robocop.
I have it at home on
And
DVD.
it was pretty violent. Especially when they kill Murphy and they're like blowing his limbs off with the guns.
That part, and that's the part they kept in.
No, they cut.
No,
they cut
part of that
where his limbs are actually being blown off.
Part of it.
Yeah.
The scene that they cut out was when they're introducing that Ed 209, the big one.
Yeah.
And the one guy throws the gun down and it blows the living hell out of him. And there's just so much more guns blowing holes in this guy and blood flying than what you see in the R-rated version.
Yeah.
But this movie was great because it had this great variety of campy humor, like the advertisements for media break during the news and stuff.
Exactly.
But then this straight up just kick-ass action I just loved. I just thought it was a great
it was a wild movie.
Great epitome of what 80s movies were.
Now, obviously, I didn't see this movie until later on.
Really?
I did not see it as an adult, as a kid. I think I saw it more as an adult. But I appreciated it. It was definitely had that 100% 80s feel to a movie. It was definitely an 80s, the way the characters are, and a lot of the street punks, you can take those out of 1970s movies. They still have the bandanas and they're all fighting with knives.
Oh yes.
But It's too bad that movies aren't more like this, a product of their time, like Robocop was. And that's why it's, considered pretty much a classic today. I mean, who doesn't
Everyone
consider Robocop a classic?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And even the remake, a lot of people said the remake of Robocop was good, but the problem is this movie was never meant to be that serious. And that's what I think the problem with the remake
2014.
the 2014 Robocop remake.
Yeah.
It's too polished.
Yeah, this was just more raw.
Yeah, it was just raw, and they didn't care. They're not going for it's a basic story in a raw format, and they don't care if the sets are perfect or if the guy is 100% believable. But that's what makes it better and more believable.
Yes, exactly. And the special effects were so 80s then, the latex masks or the stop motion photography. Yeah. And, but the action itself was just vintage 80s action.
Yes, exactly.
Violence, which 80s action movies were, and it was great. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to play one of my favorite scenes from this movie.
Okay.
Because it just shows how good RoboCop's targeting system was. That's all I'll say. You already know what I'm talking about now.
Yeah,
right?
I think I do.
All right. So here we go. RoboCop, this is his first night out on patrol. He just saved a couple from their store getting robbed.
Uh-huh.
And now he's just on patrol, serving the public trust, protecting the innocent. All his directives.
Okay.
And thank you to Fandango for this clip.
Classic 80s. Not only the thugs, but the woman.
Yeah, her hair is all as big as ours.
Big and curly.
It's too much hair. I know. Give it a heck.
Little racy clip here.
Yeah.
Hey, my hair down there.
Wow.
But these over-the-top thugs are great. Such great villains. Just shows how badass RoboCop
Number one,
is.
why was that lady walking around that area of town at night?
Let the woman go.
Because it was in the
You're
script.
under arrest.
Here we go.
Okay. Okay.
He shoots through her skirt.
Shoots him in
the nuts.
Wow.
Your move,
Creep. Wow. That is
I just got to say right there, there's no therapy that's going to help that guy.
Well, and again, this is so 80s. I mean, they would never do that in a movie today.
Oh, heck no. Just the whole scene itself is almost controversial because they're kind of sort of raping, whatever you want to call it. After RoboCop saves her, he even says, "You've been the victim of a crime, rape crime, or something like that." Would you like some help? Yeah,
didn't he offer like a number to call?
He offers something. We could probably actually hit play and probably continue.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
let's see. She goes to hug him, like, thank you, and he's the cold robot.
Yeah. Thank you. And he looks at her and he's like,
you have suffered an emotional shock.
There it is.
Yeah.
I will notify a rape crisis center.
So you see, RoboCop's a good guy.
Yeah.
That just kind of shows him as his robotic side. But the thing I like it later that comes in the movie is he kind of has the memories of himself as a policeman, as Alex Murphy, the policeman. And I like how that kind of becomes the focal point of his, I don't know if you want to call it the inner struggle or what, but, being human versus being this robo super cop thing.
Uh-huh.
The OCP guys, that own him, they want him to just be straight up robot, forget his memory. And the scientists that work on him and his partner that was with him when he gets shot is Alex Murphy. She knows it's him. And that's kind of what triggers him, even remembering that he was Alex Murphy at one point. But it's got that nice little contrast. He's not just a machine. He's also part human and plays a big part.
And this is my big point about these movies is that, in this time period of movies, they didn't focus so much on trying to create what they believe these worlds would be in the future. They're just basically minor upgrades from the current day, but by doing that, they became more realistic and more real than anything that they do today.
The same thing you can do in like a movie like this is they just refer to it as the near future.
Yes, exactly.
Now this was made in 87, and we're nowhere near this kind of cyber technology yet, but
no,
we're close. We got some pretty smart computers.
But that's also why these movies live on.
That's what makes it great. Yeah.
And, because the difference is you look at the movies that are going to live on today versus back then. There's a lot more movie, and these movies were a lot lower budget. They were not meant to be trilogies or entire blocks of movies. Like Robocop was made to be a one-off.
But then it was so popular, it became a trilogy.
It became a trilogy.
With two very not as good sequels.
But
yes.
I mean, that was never their purpose. Whereas today, we have some movies that are great, that are going to live on.
Right.
We just don't have as many of them.
Well,
and the overall quality, just or at least entertainment wise, is not there.
Yeah. You've heard us talk about our 80s movies before in the past and stuff. We love our 80s movies. There's just those formulas that just make them work, that make them magical, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And, one great thing, another thing I loved about Robocop that provided that 80s magic for me was that Peter Weller, the star, Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah, Mr. Buckaroo Banzai.
Just the fact that he was the star of the show just made it like, okay, how much more 80s does this movie need to be?
And one day we're going to have to do Buckaroo Banzai.
I need to watch that one again. It's been a long time.
It's free on, you can actually watch it free on YouTube.
I think I've got it. I'm sure
I think I've watched it twice in the last year.
But yeah,
it's an interesting movie. We'll save our comments for it.
One for another episode for sure. But
so, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Lost in the 80s. I'm Johnny B.
I'm Bretman.
And your move, creep.